Good evening, everybody. Happy Tuesday. It is not Monday, it is Tuesday. I hope everybody is enjoying this colder weather because I am. Like it. You like it? Yeah. All right. Yeah. Welcome to the regular meeting, 7 p.m. Tuesday, October 15th. We'll get started at 7 o'clock. We will do roll call and then pledge allegiance.
President Valerie Reinfeller.
Here.
Vice President Andrea DiPillo.
Here.
Councilmember Matt Castiglia.
Here.
Councilmember Shirley Blair Fuller.
Here.
Councilmember Deb Cassini-Klein.
Here.
Councilmember Greg Tradanovich.
Here.
Councilmember Brooke Bruchette Williams. Not present.
All right, and we'll stand up and pledge allegiance to the flag.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. We will start our public comment. If you are a Churchill Borough resident or taxpayer, you can please raise your virtual hand or your physical hand if you're in the room. And you have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and your address. And I will give space for the people in the room today. Thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for coming. Does anybody want to speak that is in public right now? Absolutely, please come on. And just remember, state your name and your address.
So Griever, 1520 Williamsburg Place, I am. I just want to compliment Ralph. And one of the police officers, I'm sorry, I did not get his name. There was, it was not like a welfare check, but it was they came to take care of a neighbor, very respectful and very kind. And it was awesome just to see the friendship, the neighborhood feeling, and just they took care of the neighbor, and it was just like, I missed that because it was just awesome, and I think they both did a good job. And I'm sorry that I do not know the police officer's name.
Officer Lewandowski.
Lewandowski, Chris, yes. He is
Amazing,
wonderful.
just kind, and he took the time, several phone calls back and forth and here and there, just everything, and it was perfect. And thank you so much, Ralph.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. I'll make sure that he is aware. Any other comments in public? All right, we'll move to our online. We have 3 people online at the moment. If you would like to speak online, please raise your virtual hand and we will promote you to panelists so that you are able to speak. I see nobody raising their hand, so we will close public comment. Thank you. And we'll move on to our ordinary items for our agenda.
Fantastic. Madam President, motion to approve the meeting minutes from the September 3rd, 2024 council workshop meeting and the September 9th, 2024 regular council meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And it carries. And moving on to Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam President.
Madam President,
We'll have him speak first.
okay, yeah, come.
Okay. The chief has reported to me that in the month of July, August rather, there were, you know what, you have to, I kept it wrong.
Back it up.
August. Yeah, I mean,
September, October?
August. September.
September.
September. Oh, here she is. Come on, you. There it comes. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Chief has reported to me that this is the month of July. This is. Yeah, that's right. In the month of September, 2 significant incidents Yeah, this is available. Two significant incidents. The office has handled a total of 880 events for the year, 8,567 year to date, consisting of calls of service and proactive patrol engagements and details affecting and 5 arrests. Department's 5 police vehicles logged a total of 5,347 miles. The combined year-to-date total, that was at 41,580. The ticket summary for the month of September was 59, it was 1 non-traffic, 9 parking, and 49 traffic tickets. The magisterial fine for September 24 was $578.22. That's $61.06 year to date. On Tuesday, September the 3rd, the chief and officers of the daylight shift were notified of a stolen vehicle that just fled the Penn Hill area and was traveling south on Rhode Island Road. The vehicle was located entering 376 West, and the officers attempted to effect a traffic stop. The vehicle accelerated to well more than 100 miles an hour and accelerated the Churchill off-ramp where the decision was made not to pursue the vehicle. The actor continued at a high rate of speed and then lost control and struck a telephone pole on William Penn Highway at Graham Boulevard and then rolled over. The driver fled the vehicle on foot. Following a foot pursuit and lengthy canine track by the Penn Hills Canine Unit, the actor was located and taken into custody. The actor was positively identified and determined to have multiple active arrest warrants for his arrest. He was also identified as a federal parole violator. Seized from the vehicle and from his person were more than 2,500 stamped bags of suspected heroin, fentanyl, and several baggies of crack cocaine, marijuana, as well as a stolen firearm. Our department is currently working closely with the AFT with the intention of prosecuting the actor in federal court. The second one on Monday, September 9th, the officers were notified of a threat received by phone at the Woodland Hills High School office from an unidentified male advising that he was en route to the campus to shoot several students. As students had not yet arrived for the day and after conferring with school administration, it was decided to err on the side of caution and hold classes remotely. Our department collaborated with the Allegheny County Police on the investigation, and following multiple search warrant executions, the actor was identified and determined to be a resident of Braddock, where he was located and taken into custody. The chief expresses his hopes that the investigation apprehension such as this will strongly deter any future incidents of this nature. Chief reminds us that as in past, the Allegheny County District Attorney's Office has provided each community with glow-in-the-dark wristbands to help ensure the safety of our children while trick-or-treating. The borough has 100 of those wristbands available and can be obtained from borough officers. Residents are also reminded that trick-or-treating will be between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. on Thursday, October 31st. The chief urges residents to avoid or minimize vehicular travel, particularly in our neighborhoods, and use extra caution and reduce speeds, and to have a safe Halloween for all. Details and other related statistics concerning the police department during the month of September 2024 are reported on the attached police department reports. And I have one other letter to read if you don't mind.
Yeah.
This was from Dr. Castagna at the Woodland Hills School District. It says, on behalf of the students, parents, faculty, staff, and administrators of the Woodland Hills School District, I would like to personally thank you and your officers for assisting the Allegheny County Police Department's General Investigation Unit after multiple threats of a shooting were received at the high school and 2 additional threats, including a bomb threat, were received on September 12, 2024. We are relieved to hear that the person police said was responsible for those calls and threats is awaiting arraignment and is being held in the Allegheny County Jail. Please convey our deepest gratitude to your officers and the members of your staff who are involved in assisting the Allegheny County Police Department in being able to identify who made the swatting calls and threats against our district. Sincerely, Dr. Castagna.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor.
Madam President, I make a motion to accept the mayor's report for October 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And it carries.
Madam President, motion to accept the treasurer's report for September 30th, 2024, and directing the finance officer to pay the bills for the Borough of Churchill accrued since September 10th, 2024.
Second.
Yeah, as always, I'm just reading the large bill real quick. So Gateway, $32,998.55. MRM Property, Liability Trust, $26,741. Bigliotti, $20,045.25. And State Pipe Services, $5,158.31.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And it carries, and we'll move on to our action items.
Madam President, excuse me, motion to adopt resolution 4613, approving the Churchill Borough Climate Action Plan.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? No, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
And a very good plan it is.
Opposed? Any opposed? And it carries. Moving on to our number. Can somebody pick up number 2, please? Anybody?
Madam President, motion to adopt ordinance 775, amending chapter 240 rental property of the Borough of Churchill so as to remove the requirement to identify occupants and tenants under the age of 18 as part of the occupancy and rental registration process.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just in case anyone missed the workshop meeting, this has been discussed previously that there was some concern about having to identify on paperwork, folks under 18 that, ultimately it's the people over 18 that are renting the property. So that's what should be there. So
Thank
this
you.
is just kind of fixing that from previous when this was originally put in place, and appreciate Council Member Brooke for bringing that up and pushing it forward.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And it carries. Moving on to number 3.
Madam President, motion to accept the ad hoc deer committee report.
Second.
Any discussion?
We do have a brief discussion. Rory was gonna just give a quick run through. He's kind of the expert when it comes to this stuff, so, I always like to surround myself with the smartest people in the room. So he's a wildlife biologist, so he'll be able to go over everything. This is Rory Carroll. He's on our deer committee with Deb, myself, and Barry, and Sue Weigel.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give you a brief. I thought we were gonna have one other member here to give you a little bit of the history of the deer committee, but I guess it's just me today. So we kind of met and formed as a committee to try to figure out, if this was a problem, and if so, what were some of the solutions. So first thing we did is kind of identify what were some of the main concerns that people might be having in terms of the abundance of deer in the borough. We identified a few, first one being the threat of Lyme disease posed by ticks, which can transmit the Lyme disease bacterium. Turns out after some research and discussion in the committee that this is not, we feel, a major issue. Actually lowering the deer population, there's some evidence to suggest that might actually increase the incidence of Lyme disease in humans. Happy to go into details of that if you're very curious, but probably leave it there for now. But we do encourage, so with each of these threats, we also think about what we can do for residents of the borough to kind of help alleviate some of these concerns. And oftentimes, yeah.
I guess I'm sorry, I have a question, because I read the report and I thought it was wonderful. First, I'll say I appreciate, all the hard work that was put in. But is it kind of like an old wives' tale that people think that deer, are good hosts for ticks? Because I saw that through the research you all have done, it sounds like that's not really the truth.
Yeah, so deer are excellent hosts for ticks. They are dead-end hosts for the Lyme disease bacterium, though. So the thinking goes, and there is scientific evidence to back this up, that if there are fewer deer on the landscape, you're going to have ticks that are preferentially going to be feeding on better Lyme disease hosts, small mammals, squirrels, raccoons, things like that. When an infected tick bites a deer, it can transmit the bacteria, but deer blood plasma kills all Lyme disease, which is really interesting. It's kind of an interesting avenue of research into potentially treatments for Lyme disease, but they are dead-end hosts. So a tick that is uninfected cannot get Lyme disease from the deer because
From the deer, okay, that's what that means.
and so lowering deer abundance just increases the relative abundance of better Lyme disease hosts.
Excellent, thank you.
Sure. So in terms of education, I think just having people understand that ticks are an issue, right? Like, it's not a deer issue, but ticks are an issue. And just practicing tick safety in terms of, if you go outside, even in your backyard or, walking through the woods, checking yourself. Typically, you have about 24 hours after the tick bites you before it's actually going to infect you with anything that's in its saliva. So as long as you're doing, evening checks when you go home, after spending significant amounts of time where you might encounter a tick, that's important. We can also share lots of information with residents about tick identification. In terms of Lyme disease, black-legged ticks, also known as deer ticks, are the big concern there. They are fairly easily identifiable, so if you get bitten by one of those, it's a little bit bigger of a concern. When to remove, how to remove, those are kind of things that we can create some resources to share. Also, for any resident of Pennsylvania, there's a free service run by East Stroudsburg University. You can actually send them the tick and they'll test it for Lyme disease. So you'll know if the tick that bit you is actually infected. So, that is a concern. We don't think that necessarily this is a concern with deer in our borough, though. Probably the biggest concern that we got in terms of feedback from committee members as well as people that we talk to in our public meetings is the undesired browsing of plants, shrubs by white-tailed deer. Again, I think the biggest suggestion that we have is just education. Trying to get people to understand that there are lots of options out there. None of those solutions, are foolproof, right? There is no such thing as a deer-proof plant. If they are hungry enough, they're going to eat anything, right? Native plants do tend to be more resistant to deer browsing. They tend to be more resilient to bounce back if they are browsed. So I think encouraging people to plant native plants is a really great potential solution there. We can also educate people on lots of different types of repellents that are out there, as well as fencing options, whether that's for an individual plant that's just your favorite plant on your property, or whether it's your entire property. Obviously, the cost can be a little bit prohibitive there, but there are some options there. Hazing can be an effective option, but most of the research here suggests that you have to be really, really consistent, which is difficult, right? Anytime a deer comes into your yard, you have to be consistent with that hazing, whether it's, sound or lights or you yelling at it or whatever it is. So that can be challenging to be consistent enough to make that an effective option. I think the most important thing is for people to adjust their expectations. This is not an issue, we as a committee discussed that this is not an issue that's going away. We're not just going to snap our fingers and the deer are all of a sudden going to be gone. So adjusting your expectations in terms of what you can grow and what you should grow in your yard and how often you expect that to be browsed, I think is a really important thing. Another major concern, vehicle deer collisions resulting in personal injury and property damage. We found lots of recommendations here, mostly just things that are road safety issues, right? Encouraging safe driving practices, reducing or increasing visibility along the sides of roads, cutting down brush, trees, things like that are going to kind of allow deer to get close to the road, invisible to drivers until it's too late. Using speed control devices, like some of the things that we have up, I know, on Beulah Road and what's the other road that runs parallel to that?
Greensburg Pike.
Yes, Greensburg Pike. So I mean, there are speed control devices there that personally, anecdotally, I feel have been effective. I haven't seen deer in these parts of the roads in quite a while. So I've seen deer, dead deer. Big difference. Signage can help if we do find that there is an area where there's an overabundance of deer crossing. That could be really effective. Of course, that would require some research for us to know exactly where those areas are. And lastly, setting up a reporting system so we can maybe collect some of that data. We can get a better idea of exactly where deer collisions are happening on our roads in the borough. That could be a potential data collection effort that could potentially lead to some further action in the future. People may be tempted to feed deer, which is always a bad idea. As a wildlife biologist, I can tell you that this is probably one of the things that I think about and deal with way more than I should. People think it's a good idea to feed deer, and I guarantee you there are people in the borough who do feed deer, which feeding that deer one time it just eliminates any positive effect of any hazing that was done, right? So they're associating humans with food, and that's a very strong driver. So aside from perpetuating the problems that we have with deer-human conflict. It also can increase disease issues among the deer. There's lots of evidence, especially in the winter time, if they're not eating natural foods. There's a disease called rumen acidosis, where they have a gut microbiome that they are dependent on to break down the foods that they eat. And that gut microbiome matches up the available foods in the landscape. If we're just dumping corn out for them in the middle of the winter or straw or whatever we're feeding them, their gut microbiome is not able to break that down, and they can actually starve to death even though they have a full belly. So I think, again, like this kind of comes down to education, right? I think people who feed deer might not understand this and they might think they're doing the deer a favor. But for many reasons, it's never a good idea to do that. So our thoughts were potentially creating an ordinance, something with some teeth maybe that would kind of prohibit anyone from actually intentionally feeding deer. And also, again, sharing information about why that might not be a good idea. Another concern people had was, and this is a very real concern, deer limiting the ability of forests to regenerate. Whole line of research on that, which again, I'm happy to talk about, but I'm not sure this is the venue for that necessarily. It is a long-term issue, statewide, nationwide, really, in terms of trees not regenerating, because when the saplings are young, that's when they get overbrowsed by deer. Not necessarily a concern we felt like for our residents here. It's more a concern for park managers and things like that. Certainly a concern with Frick Park and Chevy Park and areas like that. Probably a concern with the Greenway for Allegheny Land Trust, but mostly for homeowners in the borough, we didn't think that was a major issue. But all this kind of comes down to, we felt that public education was the best option that we have. And so we're making the broad recommendations, increasing our use of social media and public forums to do some outreach in terms of education, develop strategies to present residents with that pertinent information as a means to repel, prevent, kind of lower the incidence of conflict there. Just to increase the community awareness and participation in efforts to lower the conflict. We also propose using workshops or presentations. So inviting state biologists, the deer biologists, inviting master gardeners, inviting health professionals, inviting environmental engineers or landscapers to do some workshops with the public to kind of get the word out on some of the educational components of this. And then cultivating partnerships again with local garden clubs and stuff like that, just to kind of get the word out on how we can be good neighbors rather than just trying to, fight the deer population to be better neighbors with our deer population. And then finally, I think this is the most important issue. There's an old saying in wildlife biology that it's 10% about animals and 90% about people, right? And so I think to understand whether there's an issue here or not, whether there's an overabundance population here, the most important thing that we need to know is what do the residents of the borough of Churchill want for a deer population, right? We could do a study and figure out exactly how many deer are in the borough, what that density or what that abundance is. It's meaningless if we don't have an idea of what that cultural carrying capacity, what's the number of deer in the borough that people can exist, right? And so with that, I think the first step of any really good management program is going to be to somehow survey the residents and figure out if this is a problem, how big of a problem it is, and what is an acceptable level of deer in the borough. I think that's summarizes our discussion.
Right.
Take any questions if you have them.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Great.
I have a couple of questions or comments maybe, and just, I appreciate that you brought up about the Greenway, because I know, so down there, if I recall correctly, they have an area where they fenced off, right? So to keep deer out, to help the plants grow, and that's really a common practice. If you go any kind of hiking around state parks, you'll see they have, restricted zones. So I think that's great for people to understand that, that's part of how they do forest management. So, the other thing is, Gavin, don't we have a current ordinance that prohibits feeding wildlife?
Yes,
I think we
have
yeah.
fun and
Okay.
Yeah, I think we discussed that as a committee, and then it was like, well, maybe something, right? I mean, it's like
A
something
little
that
bit more.
people are gonna want to buy into,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I think that's the key, right? Not absolutely has to be a stick, but maybe a carrot, right?
Great. Appreciate that, and certainly we'll look forward to hearing, more as the committee continues to work. The last thing I just wanted to remind, I had forgotten until recently, I was driving home, it was getting dark or the other night, and one deer came running across and I slowed down and the person behind me is like South Hills, Mount Lebanon, like, starts honking for a second and then goes to zoom around me and almost hit the second deer that was following that, first deer. So just as a reminder to motorists, they tend to kind of go like that. So, if you see that first one cross, it's probably best to slow down and let the other two or three get across and then proceed cautiously. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I think speed's a big issue there too, right? I mean, like deer are used to fleeing predators who can run 25 miles an hour, right? When you go 35 and 40, that's very unfamiliar.
Well, again, thank you so much for the excellent.
Thank you.
One more comment, and just to add to that, I just looked it up here, the rutting season begins since September through January.
Yep.
So that makes it there a little bit more crazy, like Matt says, when one jumps across the road, a couple more follow, we have it around the borough everywhere you go. During the rut, I think they lose, they go a little crazy, so they're really running around the neighborhood.
Yes, especially the bucks right now, they're one track mind for sure.
Thank you, Rory.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I just want to have the minutes reflect that Councilmember Brooke Burchett Williams is online now.
Great, thank you. Was there a second? I'm sorry, there was a second?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And they carried. And, moving on to number 4.
Madam President, I would motion to adopt resolution 4614, approving the Borough of Churchill to become an e-permit partner with the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation.
Second.
Any discussion?
So I was just say, just as a reminder, in case anyone didn't see the meeting last week, this is part of the requirements for working with PennDOT now to, be a partner with their online system. It's a system they've had for a long time, been using, before there was other ways to do that work. Now they're requiring us to partner with them. There is no cost to the borough to do so. So just a box to check, basically.
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
And it carries, and we'll move on to our staff and support team reports, and we'll start with our engineer, Denny.
Thank you, Madam President. Just have a couple of highlights to go along with our report that we provided. We did provide an infrastructure and information session last week. We'll be getting the final slides over and those can be distributed here shortly. The paving program was completed last month. And that was the work on McCready. Pavement application will be expected by the end of this month for consideration next month. And also at the end of September, we're both the consent order and MS4 deadline. So there's reports that prepared for each and submitted by the end of September. And lastly, just moving forward next month or at the December meeting, we would expect to have an item on the agenda for renewing the contracts or potentially getting ready for the new sewer O&M contracts for CCTV and repair that we typically review. All that I had, unless there's any other questions.
Thank you. Ralph?
Thank you, Madam President. The only thing I have on the public works is last week, the guys at rock crack sealing, lots of roads, they got a lot of stuff done.
Thank you.
This week, they're out cleaning out catch basins for MS4 permitting. So this week and part of next week, they'll be out sucking catch basins out. And once we're done with that, we're probably gonna go right in and start cleaning leaves up. Because they are starting to fall.
Yeah.
Under fire department, we had 46 calls last month. We're at 378 as of the end of last month. And the only call of significance was we had a rollover here in front of the borough building. Guy was trapped in the car. We had to cut him out. That's all. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was he okay?
He walked away.
That's great. Ashley?
So we're really cracking down on budget season, and I sent out some days, theories, when council can kind of come in and sit down with staff. And go over some budget items, so just let me know. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Michelle?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to thank Ashley and Jacob and the Budget and Finance Committee for working on the budget. It's a long, tedious process, but I feel like we have a really good team and a good system down. So, as a council member or VP DeSilla said last time, we're interested in holding an open house to talk to the residents, so stay tuned for that.
Great, thank you so much. Mr. Solicitor, Gavin,
No report, Madam President.
great. I will move it on to over here on the table. Does anybody want to say anything? Yeah, we can go ahead.
Yep, just as always, as Ralph always says, Halloween doesn't change. It is always October 31st, 6 to 8. Please be careful when you're driving through. It's dark. The kids wear dark costumes. They don't always have glowy sticks with them. Just be careful. Looking forward to it. I also want to thank everybody who, Deb and Greg and Jacob and everybody who helped decorate the building. It looks really cool. Yeah, it looks great. So
The fun committee.
the fun committee did it. Yeah, so I
The
appreciate that.
uniform fun committee.
Yeah, you're the chair. No, Brett, so I just want to thank that. And I do believe on October 31st, during the day, come back for candy.
Yes, we're gonna have candy available and maybe some other treats, so.
Well, that case,
and-
Candy and climate action.
That's
Candy
right.
time now.
Right, until I think about 4 o'clock, yes, I leave, so, and you don't have to be a kid, if you're an adult, and wanna stop by with your costume or no costume, grab some candy. Come and grab some candy and say hi to everybody, that'd be terrific. Oh, one other thing about Halloween, make sure your walkways are cleared, so the kid, a lot of times there's a lot of leaves or what have you, and sometimes the leaves are wet from the day before if it rained, and you don't want little kiddos slipping and falling, so just a little thing to think about. Anything else?
So I'll just, on behalf of Public Safety Committee, we had our first meeting last week. I apologize, I didn't get to submit a formal report, but, we have a number, issues we'll be working on. I'll let council know about that as we move forward. Right now is, working with the budget committee for making sure we have the appropriate funding for the fire department, police, and other public safety stuff. I did want to point out, I'd had the resident ask about if they ever had to drop off, like drug take back or anything like that. So the Elks I saw is hosting a, public open to the public drug take back day on October 26th from 10 to 1, right down at the Wilkins Elks. So if you have, leftover medications or other things, you can drop those off there. And then I just wanted to remind folks that next Tuesday I'll be available if anyone wants to stop in, 4 to 6 p.m., in council chambers. If you have any concerns that you want to discuss, if there's any other council members that want to join me, as long as we're not more than 3, welcome to be here. And then I plan to attend the Wilkins Penn Joint Water meeting after that as well.
Great, thank you, Matt. Anyone else?
I have a few things.
Yes.
November 1st starts our annual toy drive, so if you have any unwrapped toys you'd like to help donate, we'll have a box in the lobby. Please, drop them off. We'd really appreciate that. November 3rd, your clocks go back, not forget that. And also November 9th, which is a Saturday from 9 to 12 at the Allegheny Land Trust, we're doing, they're doing another tree planting. That's
Tree
correct,
planting.
right? Yeah, so, that's from 9 to 12. In our newsletter, there's a little article about it and it tells you what link to go to, you have to register for it. But, they've planted so many trees this year and that's terrific. And, I hope everybody got their newsletters. They came out yesterday and today. I think it's terrific. One little note, if you go to the page that lists, we have a great page here that Churchill celebrates the holidays. There's all kind of good things going on. Make sure you look at that, but there's one little mistake on the Santa Parade. The Santa Parade is Saturday, December 14th from 11:30 to 1, but for some reason we put 5 to 8 p.m. That is not gonna happen. Santa's not coming in the dark. Ralph should sleep by then. It's not gonna happen. So just make a note, and we'll be promoting it, but it is from 10 o'clock to 1:30. But other than that, I thought it was a really terrific, really proud of the communications committee and the staff. It's a terrific newsletter, and it does take a lot of time and energy for everybody, and we do appreciate it. And I think that's all.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Just wanted to make a note about, fall leaf pickup started today. So it'll go to December 3rd. If you put your leaves out the night before, biodegradable bag, go up the top.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, ma'am. There's a lot going on in front of this month, and I have written down a whole bunch of things. First, I want to thank anyone who signed up to go to the Rotary dinner on this coming Friday, October 18th at the Lamplighter, or you donate, made a donation to the cause. You know, the Rotary, we put all that money back out in the community. I passed Eileen in front of everybody. The Presbyterian Church is having their 20th annual pancake breakfast. So if you can make it to that on that Saturday, that's next Saturday on the 26th. And Deb already mentioned the tree planting on the 9th, that's good. We had trunk or treat at the high school on, what was it, Sunday, 13th. Someone told me there were like 1,500 kids that came through. There had to be at least 50, 60 different people who set up their cars to pass out candy.
That's
The
amazing.
rec board was there, the Church of Wilkins Rotary was there, Bay School was there, the Forest Hills and Church of Wilkins Rotary was there, Wilkins Police were there. We had our officers, we did our part, Zach was up patrolling, doing the traffic patrol on Greensburg Pike. So it was a beautiful day, it didn't rain all day like it did last year, you know, very well attended. Tomorrow, litter pickup, October 16th, we meet at 9 a.m. at the Borough Building. We fan out from there, so we'll be doing that tomorrow morning. We do that for 2 hours or so, averaging like 10 bags of trash each week from this entrances and exits to the parkway, a little bit of Buell Road, McCray, and so on. I want to thank the team, Matt and his crew who decorated the building. Come by and see all the corn stuff, pumpkins, inside the building itself, the office, all the decorations in there.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks for all that. Blackridge had their fall festival last week, or 2 weeks ago. Good affair down there, lots of good food, people having a good time down in the Blackridge area. Thanks, Seal and Cheryl, for that, the whole thing, a lot of fun. Woodland Hills had their international event last Wednesday or Thursday, I'm not sure. Thursday? Very well attended, a lot of people were there, and at the end of the evening, it had fireworks out in the parking lot. And Ashley and her boys, we sat on the back of the truck on the tailgate and watched fireworks from the parking lot. That was a lot of fun over there. So look forward to that next year, because it really is, it's a very interesting evening.
And it's growing.
And it is good, you're right.
It's growing.
I wanted to thank Denny for last Friday for keeping us for 4 hours.
Right.
It was a very informative session from Gateway. I was just outlining everything that the borough needs to do. And like he said, if someone has an extra $1 million laying around,
We could use it.
we could fix that off today. Well, and one other thing, I talked to the chief about, having council take a look at the car. He couldn't make it tonight. Today was a court day for him. He'd been in the building since early this morning, had to do some things with his son tonight, so he couldn't make it tonight. So we talked again about meeting outside in the parking lot, either the workshop or before the regular monthly meeting, and taking a look at the car so you can see what's in there. If the weather is bad, we thought we'd just go down the garage. You know, we'll be inside, it'll be warm. We could take a look at the car and see, he can kind of point out things that are, you know, a must have for our cars. I forget what the price of the last vehicle was, but these are all things we need, or the police department needs to do their job. And that's all I have.
Thank you, and I know, Brooke is online, wants to say something.
Good evening, everyone. So I just wanted to provide some updates regarding the information that was stated last week regarding Schaefer Elementary School. I talked with the district. They were supposed to send someone out from pest control to survey the area today. I will have some more information as I receive that. As far as the timeline for when the demolishing of the building will happen, right now the plan is being reviewed by BIU. Once it's approved, then they will have a stronger timeline for when the building will be coming down. They will be sending out postcards or a letter to residents in the area to provide them with information in preparation for the building being demolished.
Great, thank you so much for that update.
Thanks, bro.
Anybody else?
Motion to adjourn?
Second. All right, we're done. Thank you all.